and welcome to World Insight. I'm Kim Wei in Beijing. Chinese lawmakers have passed the draft of the national security law for Hong Kong's special administrative region. It is expected to take effect on Wednesday. Legislators agree that the law is well suited to the current situation in the city. They say it will effectively fix legal loopholes and protect the legitimate rights of the local residents. Critics fear the new law will erode the basic freedoms that they enjoy under the one country, two systems model. However, others disagree. Meanwhile, the United States looks to scrap Hong Kong's special trade status, barring defense exports and also restricting the city's access to high-tech products. President Donald Trump announced a withdrawal of Hong Kong's trade status last month, threatening a full range of export controls. Hong Kong's Chief Executive Carrie Lam has this to say.
We may
find alternatives to those products in many other countries around the world. The impact of the U.S. decision on Hong Kong will be very, very small. Any sanction will not scare us. We are prepared. When necessary, I believe the central government will also take countermeasures. We will do our best to cooperate on the countermeasures proposed by the central government at diplomatic level.
For more on U.S. cancellation of Hong Kong's specials, we are joined in Hong Kong by Edward Xie, Chairman and CEO of Gaofeng Advisory Company. Mr. Xie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
State security law has been passed by the National People's Congress Central Committee. Now, what is your quick reaction to the latest development?
From the general public of Hong Kong standpoint, most people, I would say, would welcome this law because the law would ensure that there will be a certain degree of stability in our society. Because, as you know, in the last 1 year, Hong Kong have had a lot of turbulence.
Yes.
And that has affected all aspects of people's livelihood and also the overall economy of Hong Kong.
The Chinese central government is likely to establish security office in Hong Kong. Meanwhile, there's also likely to be other measures taking place as a result of the state security law. So what do you think are likely to be some of the latest events on the horizon in Hong Kong, and how will Hong Kong interact with those possible events?
What I think in the short term we're going to see is that there will be a drastic change in the street level events, i.e. protests and riots that we've been seeing over the last year. I think there will be a significant drop in the occurrence of these kind of events. And at the surface of the Hong Kong society, much of it will return to a certain degree of normality.
We have been hearing reports suggesting some of the Pan Am campaigns and movements and organizations has dispersed. Your reaction?
On one hand, this is kind of expected, right? Because once the Pan Am factions is aware that they knew that their previous tactics could not work anymore. So, you know, the disbursement or dispersion of, you know, whoever they are from the organization standpoint is kind of expected. But I would also expect that because of the new law, they recognize that they have to change the tactics of how to fight against the, from their standpoint, you know, the mainland Chinese government as well as the Hong Kong government. So I think this is a change in the tactics or strategy of the Pan Ams in response to new law.
Likely there are new red lines set by the state security law. Now, do you think the general public in Hong Kong, which is has been quite used to a different kinds of lifestyle, will be able to adjust to the new situations?
For the majority of the Hong Kong population, I think you know, they will find out. They will find out how the new Hong Kong life is going to look like under the new law. But my sense is that it's going to be a bit of a give and take as well. In other words, you know, once the law is implemented, the Chinese side also is going to try to experiment things a little bit and see how the reaction from the Hong Kong people is going to be. And Hong Kong people will express their their opinions, and there will be some kind of give and take along the way.
U.S. cancellation of Hong Kong's special status, particularly coming from the Commerce Secretary's statement. What do you make of that?
The U.S. or perhaps some of the other Western governments, most of them have never really studied the basic law. Most of them don't really understand how one country's two systems actually works. And whatever definition they have about, quote unquote, Hong Kong's autonomy is probably blurred and unclear. So it is under this context that I believe that any decisions, policy decisions that's made by any foreign governments, in the U.S. governments in particular, need to be carefully reviewed. No sanctions is a good sanction, in my view. The world needs to work, the world will be a better world if people try to work closer together. But nonetheless, politics always get into the ways that people live, business run, and so on.
Right.
And I think this is yet another example of how that arbitrary insertions of one side point of view onto another side, in my view, is not optimal.
Many Chinese companies that are listed in the U.S. stock markets, as a result of the geopolitics, try to make another listing in Hong Kong. That's already been happening over the past few months. What does that mean to Hong Kong stock markets and also Hong Kong's position as a financial center in the Asia-Pacific region?
This is rather paradoxical because, in a way, the Chinese companies wanting to get a second listing in Hong Kong is somewhat of a response to how the U.S. government is treating the Chinese companies, for right or for wrong. And when I said paradoxical, because it actually therefore enhances Hong Kong's capital market position, because these Chinese companies are flocking to Hong Kong, and also many new Chinese companies who have been emerging in the China market by themselves, and before they may consider going to the U.S. and get listed, and maybe some of them will continue to do so, but many of them will actually consider to come to Hong Kong to get the initial IPO. And so I think you will see this going on in the foreseeable future, and as I mentioned, therefore, it's going to strengthen Hong Kong's position as a financial center. And in turn, we're going to create a larger pie for American companies who have been benefiting from this process along the way anyways.
That's a great point. Another thing, you have seen the Chinese central government and the financial authorities have been trying to create schemes with which cities, both on the mainland and in Hong Kong, Macau, will be able to more interacting with one another in the financial sector. For example, the most latest wealth management scheme that is likely to bring both residents in Hong Kong and in Macau, as well as those from 9 Chinese cities, to be able to buy financial products from each other's markets. So now that's interesting, isn't it?
I think this kind of measures are going to be beneficial both from the standpoint of the Hong Kong and Macau residents, but also mainland Chinese residents in the selected cities under the policy. And I also expect this policy will this sort of policies will increase in the numbers over time once Hong Kong's situation is stabilized. The mainland Chinese government will institute more of these kind of measures to encourage more mutual exchange of benefits across the border between the SARs, the 2 SARs, and the mainland. And I think this synergy will accelerate the economic process across the mainland, Hong Kong, and Macau over time.
Final question for you, Mr. Xie. Of course, the U.S. Secretary of State, Mr. Pompeo, has been talking about stop exporting, national security sensitive technologies to Hong Kong. How much impact will that have on Hong Kong, by the way, and also Hong Kong's trade interactions with the mainland?
It's unclear what Mr. Pompeo would do, but hopefully not overly extravagant. But for now, I think, obviously this is a concern for us in Hong Kong. We want to see more details. It's probably going to impact some of us, but probably not in the majority of us.